Good evening and welcome to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. I'm your host, Andrew Seeley. To our fans on Digicel Sportsmax and Scene TV in North America, welcome to tonight's show. Barry Wilkinson talks to Sir Curtly Ambrose about his journey at the World Cup, and Philip Hackett is in the studio, all tonight on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. But when we come back, Barry Wilkinson and Sir Curtly in Australia.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
We're here with a legend of the game, Sir Curtly Ambrose. Always good to talk to him, and perhaps the place where he was most devastating, Perth, Australia. Amby, great to talk to you here at Perth. I want to relive some memories with you. One of the biggest memories that stand out in cricket is that spell in Perth, 1992. Take me back.
Well, that's been such a long time ago. I can't even remember if I... Yeah, but on a serious note, though, the pitch was really conducive for fast bowling. I remember the morning of the game, I said to Captain Richardson that if we win the toss, we'll win the game, and ultimately the series, because the pitch just looked really, really ripe for fast bowling. And the great Alan Border won the toss. And I thought, well, okay, they're going to have a bowl first. And to our surprise, they elected to bat first, which obviously turned to be a mistake. I didn't bowl particularly well, during the morning session. I remember Australia were 2 wickets down. Bishop had both wickets, and I didn't really bowl well. A little bit too short on that pitch, and I was very furious with myself. And after the luncheon interval, and Richie asked me, how I feel. I said, man, I'm going to bowl, because I couldn't wait to get back out there. And I got Mark Waugh out soon after, and everything was, I was in my zone. Yeah. And when I'm in that kind of mood, I'm unstoppable.
I realized, because like you said, you took 7 for 1. I am assuming, and I made perhaps a bold assumption at the beginning of the interview, that Perth is your favorite place to bowl. Is it?
Well, to be honest, as a professional, I can't really say that I have a favorite ground, because anywhere I go to play, I always try to do the best job that I can do for the team. But I've been I've done extremely well here at Perth. I've played 3 test matches here, and I've taken 24 wickets. So one would argue that it was my, I wouldn't say favorite ground, but I've done extremely well here. But generally, I always enjoy touring Australia. I love the country. What I find about Australians, even though we were beating them, the fans appreciate good cricket. So Australia has always been my favorite place to tour, and I love it here. It's nice to be back.
Amby, we want to talk about World Cup cricket as well. How many World Cups has Curtly Ambrose played in?
I've played in 3 World Cups. The first one here in Australia, New Zealand, back in 92. Yeah. And then, of course, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka in 96. And then England in 99. Unfortunately, I've never won a World Cup medal, which is something that I really wanted to do. We got to the semi-finals in 96, and we thought that this could be our World Cup, considering we lost to Kenya in the preliminary rounds and we barely scraped through the next round. But we started to play some great cricket, because we beat Australia in our last preliminary game to qualify for the quarterfinals, and then we met South Africa. Up to that point, unbeaten. And I remember Lara scored a brilliant 100. And we won that game, and we got to the semi-finals against Australia. We thought we had them, beaten. I mean, chasing 202, we were really cruising. And then, we fell apart in the end. Some good bowling towards the end by Shane Warne and company, and we lost. And that was really, really a bitter pill to swallow. And but that's the way it is. And then 99, we never really qualified anyway. So
that World Cup was one to shelf. That was a bad one to remember. Now, you're in a different role, but you're still doing something that you love. What is it like coaching these young fast bowlers? What do you see of the talent in the future?
Well, there was never a question of talent in the Caribbean. You know, we are a nation of talented cricketers, at least in general. So there was never a question of talent. I honestly have always said that after my cricketing days, I would really love to put back into West Indies cricket. So I joined the team in 2014, May of 2014, and I'm enjoying the job. It's a bit of a challenge, considering that we are very inconsistent with our game at the moment. But I believe that, you know, given enough time, I believe that we can turn things around and be a force to be reckoned with again.
You are very animated when cricket is going on. We see you walking on the sidelines and you always seem to be involved. You're obviously loving this job.
Yes, I do. I really enjoyed it. I've got the ultimate respect from the players. So that makes my job a lot easier. I mean, we talk about cricket a lot. I have no problems with them. Yes, being involved is something that, I mean, I've played this game for many years. And as a coach or as a bowling consultant, I don't want to sit back in a pavilion, look at the bowlers performing and things aren't going well and just stay there. I prefer to go out, offer them some word of advice or telling them what I feel they're doing wrong, that kind of thing, you know. Because, I mean, none of us know everything. So, you know, going around the boundary line and stuff is not something I like to do too often because it would appear that the guys can't think for themselves. But there are points when you have to go, when things aren't really going well. So when you see you walking around the boundary line and stuff is when I can't take any more of it. So I like to give guys a chance to work things out for themselves. But once you get to a point where I realize they're really struggling, then I step in.
Wonderful stuff. Always great to talk to Sir Curtly Ambrose. I didn't ask you about how you felt about your knighthood last year because I never had the opportunity to congratulate you. How do you feel about that knighthood?
It's a great honor. I mean, it tells me that, you know, all the hard work I've done, you know, in cricket for Antigua and Barbuda and the West Indies and globally really hasn't gone unnoticed. I really appreciate being knighted by my country. It's not something that I expected, or I never really thought about it. And I have to say that, you know, when I got the call, you know, first I was in Barbados with the CCC, and I got a call from the Governor General's office saying that I have to be in Antigua on the 28th of February. And I was like, okay, but what's the occasion? And they said, well, listen, they'll get back to me. So I never knew what it was. And I thought, you know, because CCC would have been going to St. Kitts to play the first class game against Leeward Islands. So I thought, okay, no information, I can't be bothered. And then I got another call. And the same thing, no matter what, you have to be in Antigua. It's a special occasion. I said, but if you want me to be in Antigua, you have to let me know what's happening. And that's when the gentleman told me about the knighthood. And at first I thought it was a bit of a prank, because I've never heard about it or anything. And so I thought, well, somebody trying to set me up here. So I took it very casually. I said, you know what, maybe it's a prank, so leave it at that. And then I got a call from Andy Roberts. And he asked me if I got a call from the Governor General's office. And then I said, okay, well, there may be some truth to it, you know. So that's when, you know, so, but, you know, it was a nice thing, you know, to achieve. And it doesn't really change me, who I am. You know, I'm still Curtly Ambrose, the down-to-earth, fun-loving, mean-looking sometimes, you know, guy. But it's a huge honor.
Wonderful stuff. Sir Curtly Ambrose talking World Cup moments and cricket with us in the West Indies.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Playing cricket for West Indies is hard work. That's why you need the best shoes.
Bowling fast is harder than it looks. And don't forget batting, I can do that too.
You need to have the best equipment to achieve optimum results.
Being in the center, all eyes are on me. gotta look my best.
For over 3 decades, Sports and Games Barbados Limited has been outfitting professional, amateur and young athletes with the best gear. Whatever your sporting needs, you are sure to meet them there. Corner of James and Roebuck Street.
Sports and Games, we are the home of champions.
And welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. And of course, we just heard from Barry Wilkinson talking to Sir Curtly Ambrose. And now we have in the studio Philip Hackett, Barbadian cricket commentator and analyst. Philip, what a joy to hear from Sir Curtly. And what a pity we don't have a Sir Curtly on the West Indies team at the moment.
Well, we don't have a Sir Curtly, and we are lacking in many of the icons of the past who have done so much for West Indies cricket. But as we've heard so often, we're rebuilding. So maybe we'll have another Sir Curtly down the road.
Oh, down the road. But what we have to offer, though, Jerome Taylor and Kemar Roach, and it's our understanding that these two gentlemen can possibly take us forward.
Well, they would need to take us forward if we're going to progress, because that's where we're at right now in terms of the leadership, if you will, of the attack. Unfortunately, Roach has been rather injury prone recently. Taylor himself coming back from a long layoff. So that's not really the ideal combination for now. But they can only really get back to where they were before if they keep playing. So I suppose patience is the key word there.
By the time we would have recorded this program, Philip, of course, West Indies-India game would have been gone, so we're not sure where we are then. But your thoughts, it's going to be a critical factor in West Indies progressing to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. What a difference it would have been if we had actually managed to beat Ireland in game 1.
Had we done that, then, there would be no problems. The result of the India game would be of no real significance other than maybe to determine the position in which you're going to finish. However, given the way in which the matches have been played so far, it looks as though the number 4th team could possibly qualify with 6 points if you have a good net run rate. And therefore, even a loss against India would leave the West Indies with a chance if they can really produce an outstanding performance against the UAE.
Well, let's look, Philip, now generally at the Cricket World Cup 2015. Your thoughts on it? It has been a runs-filled World Cup. I think that's what fans had called for. It's been very reminiscent of a longer version of a T20 game, really.
Well, I think that's basically part of the reason why the teams have been able to score so many runs. Yes, the conditions have been encouraging for the batsmen, but at the same time, there have been occasions where the ball has moved and the bowlers have, been able to get something out of it. But I think the influence of T20 cricket is coming through as well, because our teams now are accustomed to scoring quickly over a fairly short period of time. And I think what we're seeing in terms of the fielding, it has revolutionized fielding at all levels, even in the test level. That is T20 I'm talking about. And I think we are seeing the impact of T20 on this 50-over World Cup as well, in terms of the manner in which the batsmen approach the task.
Well, Michael Clarke, the Australian captain, is suggesting that someone may soon score a triple century in a one-day international.
An individual player doing that?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be asking a lot. Well, certainly if you have two fairly well-balanced teams. Anything can happen when you have the so-called minnows against the top teams. Anything can happen. Although in this World Cup, I'm pleased to see that the so-called minnows have been quite competitive. Teams like Scotland, well, I don't know if Ireland can be justified be called a minnow at this point in time, maybe because it's Ireland. But if you follow them and if you look at the performances of the players in other matches and so on leading into the World Cup, then you're not going to be surprised by anything that has happened with Ireland. Even Afghanistan, no naming cricket, so to speak. They've played some good cricket as well. And I think for me, that's one of the more pleasing things, because I believe that the time has come for cricket to grow, unlike maybe a different mindset where it continues to be an elitist type sport. And if it's going to grow, then you need to see teams like Scotland and Afghanistan and these other nations doing well.
Well, let's talk about growth, and let's talk about the ICC and their apparently backward step. Instead of growing, they're shrinking or wanting to shrink the World Cup. We're hearing the Football World Cup, the FIFA presidential candidate suggesting moving from 32 teams to 40 or 48 teams, and the ICC suggesting instead of moving from 14, they want to move back to 10, which is actually unbelievable in my estimation.
Unbelievable, and it can't be good for cricket. That's, to my mind, a here and now decision. It's all about money, I suppose. But in the end, if the sport doesn't grow, it will die eventually. I'm not talking 5 or 10 years or even 15 years, but anything that you're doing, it must be sustainable, and it must provide room for growth. And I'm very disappointed that the ICC that they've chosen to go in that direction.
What do you think would be the genesis of a decision like that? You said it may be financial, but certainly if we grow the sport, then the fan base will spread, so the economies and of scale should improve.
That may very well be so, but you've got to look at the mindset of the people who are making the decisions, and in the here and now, they want, I suppose, the lion's share of the pie. You're seeing it in terms of the whole structure of the administration of cricket and what has happened over the last 2 years. We are now just 2-3 nations pretty much control things, and it certainly must be to their financial advantage. I don't think they would push for something that would, that they believe would be detrimental to them financially. Now, whether it will be to their advantage in the long run, that's a different story.
Well, if we look at FIFA, and FIFA is known for marketing itself and being the best organized sport in the world in terms of football, and if they view the possibility of increasing the teams in the World Cup as to their advantage, certainly the ICC needs to relook at themselves.
I think the ICC need to do a lot of introspection. If you look even at the DRS, and when you look at something like the DRS, for example, and the way that they've made it more complex really than it should be, you've got to ask yourself questions in terms of the decision making when it comes to expansion, when it comes to a number of things.
Well, in terms of decision making, really, if it's only 8 to 10 countries that actually have a one vote, and the other side have a half vote or quarter vote, clearly we understand what's going on. In FIFA, 212 countries each have a vote.
And this is why football, I suppose, will continue to grow, and why it has that appeal to the masses, and why it will be. I don't see a situation where football would be in danger of being, obsolete or being in the background. Cricket, I'm not so sure that it will be as easy to sustain a global appeal if the ICC continues to think in a very narrow sense. And I think 10 teams playing international cricket is narrow.
In terms of what we've seen from the World Cup so far, Australia and New Zealand, how have you viewed the type of coverage we've had in terms of the crowd support, both in New Zealand and in Australia?
Seems pretty good to me. But obviously you are dependent on what is shown, and from what I can see, I think the crowd support has been pretty good.
And looking forward to beyond this Australia-New Zealand, which is a combination, and some have suggested that New Zealand have an excellent opportunity of getting to the semi-finals of the World Cup merely because they're playing all their matches in New Zealand. Distinctive advantage from playing all matches at home?
Well, yeah, it is an advantage. It's also a degree of pressure. But at the same time, you've got to remember that New Zealand tend to do very well in World Cups. They just have that plucky nature about them. And this time around, it's not just about fight. They've got some talent. In Brendan McCallum, they've got an aggressive captain, a batsman who doesn't seem to know the difference between a test match, a T20 and a 50 over. He plays one way all the time, and when he comes off, that's going to be a problem to the opposition. Williamson and Taylor seem to be finding form. Guptill is also a dangerous player at the top, and of course you've got Anderson and then the bowlers as well. So they've actually got a pretty good side, and I've got them as my number 2 side to win.
Well, I've got them as my number 1, Philip, so we can disagree on that.
Well, it's difficult to count out a side like Australia because they've done it so often, and they have that confidence, that swagger about them. The New Zealanders now have to do it for the first time, and for that very reason too, I'm not as optimistic about the chances of South Africa as most people. This may seem harsh, but South Africa, I will back South Africa to win a World Cup when they win one.
That's Philip Hackett, and he's talking cricket, and so are we on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. But when we come back, the WICB meets this weekend, and also the regional 4-day continues. More on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
And welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length, and the WICB meets this weekend in Jamaica. Philip, certainly quite interesting press release came out earlier this week suggesting that the board will be concentrating on governance efforts this weekend, taking in a report from the Audit and Compliance Committee. We haven't heard much about this committee for the last year or so.
And this is probably why the issue of governance has been, has reached crisis proportions. The fiasco last year with the WICB and the problems that have been caused now with the Indian Cricket Board, something needs to be done. And I don't know if our system is set up for accountability to the wider stakeholders of West Indies cricket, being the man in the street, if you will, and other stakeholders. So it means that attention would have to be paid, your I's dotted and T's crossed, in terms of how whoever is in power carries out those functions of leadership.
Well, certainly the committee, it would suggest that governance is going to be a main talking point, and perhaps this is needed more so than ever. But the further point is, and I think which is interesting, Jagmohan Dalmaya has just been re-elected as president of the Indian Cricket Board, the BCCI, and I know that Dalmaya is a friend of West Indies cricket and has been for a while.
But this is really the sad thing about the whole fiasco with India, that the relationship between India and West Indies, and I like how you put it, they've been a friend of West Indies cricket, and that is now under threat. And when you find that type of situation where your well-being now comes under threat, under scrutiny, you've got to do something about it. And therefore, I suppose, having not paid attention to the issue of governance, let's hope it's not too little too late.
Another comment, Dr. Rudy Webster, poignant comment suggesting that the BCCI would like to see the back of current president of the West Indies Cricket Board, Dave Cameron. What a statement coming from a gentleman who was at one time a manager of a West Indies team.
Well, from what we've heard coming from the Indian authorities, I really can't, I think he's on the right track, so to speak. The thing about it is, given, as I said earlier, our system of elections, in terms of the WICB, I don't know that they will get their wish. But, well, I suppose we can only wait and see how it pans out.
Well, he suggested that politics will obviously play a factor in determining who will become president or who will remain president. Of course, we know that Dave Cameron will be challenged by the president of the Barbados Cricket Association, cricket legend Joel Garner. And Mr. Garner has in fact been on the offensive in the past couple of days, putting out his manifesto, etc., having first spoken about it here on Massey United Insurance Line and Life.
Yes, but the thing about it is, the decision makers, do they need a manifesto, or will they be influenced by a manifesto? The decision makers, I'm sure they have their own stakes, and they have their own political issues to deal with, to address, and to face. And I'm not sure, this is not an election in the sense of maybe a government trying to appeal to the electorate. This is something where the electorate, if you will, is a small group. And I'm not so sure that the political strategy being employed is necessarily going to bear fruit, but we can only wait and see.
Well, let's move away from the politics. Neither you are a real politician, so let's move away from that. Back to on the field, the Regional Professional Cricket League took a hiatus. It's back this weekend. Guyana runaway leaders at this stage. The formula which Guyana has used, has it worked, and what's that formula?
Well, the first advantage really for Guyana in terms of competing at the regional level is that they have not lost their players to the West Indies cricket. Now, of course, that's good and it's bad, because you want to get players into the West Indies team, but the nature of the type of cricket that is being played now, I suppose they really didn't have that many candidates, let's say, for West Indies selection. Maybe a Christopher Barnwell, but he has had one or two opportunities in the shorter formats.
And he's certainly gone off the boil.
Yes.
I would suggest he's probably lucky to still be in the Guyana team at this stage.
Well, given one or two of the strokes that we saw from him here in Barbados, when Guyana played Barbados, you may very well be onto something there. So it's just a question of that format. Of course, were we talking Test cricket, then Shatton Paul would not be available to them. And if you look at it, the match against Barbados, the last round match, the last time they won, that was really set up by Chanderpaul and Dana Ryan, two veterans. And it's really good for them that they have players of that ilk available to them. Now, if you look at the Barbados side, for example, in that very same game, Barbados side without a Jonathan Carter. Dwayne Smith has retired from first-class cricket. Ryan Hines, after playing so well early in the season, for some mysterious reason.
And also against Guyana as well.
Also against Guyana, being a match winner, for some reason can't make the team, even in the absence of a Jonathan Carter and a Dwayne Smith. I find that very strange. this is not to say anything negative against the players who have represented Barbados, but at the same time, experience counts for a lot. And Dana Ryan and Chanda Paul showed that in the match against Barbados.
What else have we learned from the first season of the Professional Cricket League? Some folks have suggested it's just the first year, it's embryonic, but what have we learned from it so far?
We've learned that all of the countries, if any, all the stakeholders have not really bought into the whole system. If you look at the leaguers, that's the most clear example. And it's sad, really, because they're not competitive, so no one is winning there. You play against them, you win, yes, you get the points, but you're not benefiting a whole lot because the quality of the cricket is not great. They're not benefiting because they have no one. It's like the blind leading the blind. Now, if you look at a name like Ryan Hines, for example, Dwayne Smith, and there are others around the region, of course, who may not as readily come to my mind at this point in time, but there are others. Some people may say Chadwick Walton. Now, just having one or two players like that in the leeward setup must do them good. These are players who have played at the highest level, and I'm sure that they would bring something to bear on what is happening in the Leeward Islands cricket. Right now, they're just going around in circles, going nowhere, and going there very, very quickly.
So the answer then, in terms of West Indies cricket, are we actually going forward? Because the whole role of the Professional Cricket League was to strengthen our regional cricket, which would eventually make West Indies cricket better and stronger.
I think the WICB will have to take greater control for that to happen. That's ironic because you remember it was the West Indies Cricket Board of Control some time ago. Ironically now, I think you need to put the control back in there. And something has to be done to ensure that the various teams utilize, the various franchises utilize the players that are available in the whole setup. And also, I think it's not going to really be maximized until you get international players in as well. Not in great numbers, just one or two per team. I think that will have an impact as well. And they don't necessarily have to be the current top players. If you look at a guy like, let's say, Ricky Ponting, although he is clearly past his best and is retired from virtually all formats.
Michael Hussey might be a better example.
Both players. But I'm not even talking about how many runs these people will score. These are professional cricketers of the highest standard, the highest quality. And having them around in terms of guiding the youngsters and showing them what professional cricket is about. In fact, a player like Ricky Ponting doesn't even necessarily have to be playing to show them that. But these are the influences that I think these players need in the region. And it's not just about getting maybe the best fast bowler or a cricketer who's going to score a lot of runs, but getting players who can influence our young cricketers in a positive way.
Well, that's Philip Hackett, and he's influencing us in a very positive way here on Massey United Insurance's Line and Life. Join us next week for more.